Hi, I'm Justine Thomas, one half of The T Word. We've been away for a couple of weeks, and I've got a special episode for you where I invited my mum to come on the show because my brother sloped off on a holiday. We've been away, we've been to the Reform Conference. We're super excited to come back this week, so please tune in on Tuesday at 8 p.m. for the latest episode of The T Word. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already, and don't forget to like and share our content wherever you can. It really will help us grow the channel. Thanks very much, and look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the T Word. My name is Justine Thomas, and my co-host Gareth Thomas has decided to go away on holiday. So rather than leave you all hanging without an episode, I decided to invite on a guest. Now, who would that very special guest be? Well, obviously, this is mine and my brother's show. So the natural person that we would have invited on, had we had the opportunity together, would be our one and only mother. So that's who I've invited on the show. I hope Gareth's having a fabulous time listening to this on a beach somewhere. So welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Your name is Diane Aujla, also
Correct.
known as mine and Gareth's mother. Welcome to the T Word, Mum. It's great to have you on the show. This is so cool.
So exciting. Sorry, I'm not used to this technology. Being a pensioner.
Oh, that's all good. It's all good. So how are you doing? How's your day going?
I'm good.
Excellent.
Yeah, just went out last night. So I had a good lay-in this morning, so I'm all prepared.
Excellent. Well, you just mentioned you're a pensioner. I'm not going to ask you your age because I know what your age is because you're my mum. But yes, and I definitely don't think of you as being a pensioner. So you are a pensioner though, and you do get a pension.
I do get a pension.
I know when we spoke before, you said that you were annoyed at what was happening with pensions at the moment. Tell us from a pensioner's point of view, what are your issues with pensions?
Okay. Well, you're not going to say my age, but I don't mind. I'm 73. So I was born in 1952. And we are known as the WASPI women, which I believe is Women Against State Pension Inequality. And this is what we're fighting for compensation for the 2 years that we lost. So I should have had my pension at 60, but I had to wait 2 years until I was 62 without any notice. At the time I turned 60, I was living and working in Europe. So I came back to England on a visit to claim my state pension. And I was told, oh, sorry, you're not going to get it for another 2 years.
Wow. So how much notice did you actually get?
None.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely
so you were
none.
Were you expecting to get it on a particular date?
Well, no, because we were living in, and I think in those days, if I remember rightly, it is quite a long time ago, you actually had to apply for your pension, or they sent you a form or something like that. But obviously I didn't get one because I hadn't lived in this country for 5 years. So I had no notice whatsoever. So years ago, when I was a young girl, traditionally, men went to work, women stayed at home to look after the children, or that's what happened in my mum's day. And then when the dad retired, they used to have a joint pension. But as we got a bit older, myself and other ladies like me, we decided that we would like to be a bit more independent and go to work if we could. They had what they called then the married woman's stamp, the married woman's national insurance contribution.
This sounds like something from a museum.
It is something from a museum. I mean, I'm talking about, gosh, the 1960s.
Wow.
No, the 1970s, sorry. So when you got married, you were automatically put on what they called the married woman's stamp, which was a lower payment than a man would pay or a single woman would pay. Further down the line, had an option. You could stay on the married woman stamp or you could go to a full contribution. But as I understand it, the years that you were home looking after children, your family allowance, which everybody got then, was a contribution to your national insurance because it was considered to be your job that you were looking after your children. Then a little bit further down the line, they changed it that everybody had to be on the full contribution.
Does that mean that you had to be going out to work then in order to get the
Yes.
credit for that year?
To pay your national insurance. So this government said that they would compensate all WASPI women. So it's been under discussion for quite a few years about us being compensated. This government promised that they would compensate the WASPI women. And now, because of that ever-revolving 22 billion black hole, they said no compensation for WASPI women.
What's your message then to the government? You feel that you've lost out 2 years of your state pension drawings. So, and you're saying to me that the Labour government had a manifesto commitment to right the wrong of the WASPI women. And what I'd be interested to know, what was your understanding as to what you thought they were going to do, and what would your message be to the government now?
Well, my understanding was that they were going to compensate every woman with £3,000, which was not even a year's pension, but something is better than nothing because it was not our fault. But we're not train drivers, we're not doctors, we're not nurses. We can't go on strike, so we have no voice. The only thing we can do is march on Downing Street and say, we're not dying this month, we're going on strike from death.
We're staying alive.
Staying alive. Yeah.
That's the threat. I love that. That's the threat to the government. We're not dying. I love
We're
that.
staying alive. You're not having my pension this month to put back into your coffer.
I'll stay alive another 2 years because, God damn it, I'm going to get that money.
I'm going to get that money. And also, whenever we're talking about inflation, price rises, blah, 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 they always say, well, because of the triple lock, pensioners are going to be £450 better off this year. If you're on the new full state pension, you are. If you're on the old pension, you're not.
Right. Okay. And is that, I'm guessing that's some cutoff then?
We're not getting the same amount of, we're getting the percentage, the inflationary percentage, but obviously it's not as much as.
So am I right in saying then that you haven't had this £3,000? If not, what's the status of that? Is everybody just forgotten about that? Is there an ongoing campaign for people to get that?
WASPI women are still campaigning. I believe they are going to pursue the court again for compensation because what the government of that day, whichever it was, I can't remember, did was illegal because we had no notification. There it stands in limbo, but Labour government said they don't have enough money to compensate, and that's that. So
well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about the pension, and I think there are many people who don't need the state pension. I don't think there's anybody who ever wants to turn down money that legitimately you have paid into a system, and you had a legitimate expectation that you would be able to draw down an amount of money, and it doesn't really matter whether you need it or not. The fact is, you paid in on trust, on the expectation that you would get it. And so I really kind of, I understand that disdain that people have saying, well, you just keep moving the goalposts. I mean, God knows when I'll ever get a state pension. I'll probably be about 80. I've got no idea.
They're now saying that it's going to move to 70. But I mean, these poor guys that are laying bricks, are they supposed to be out in the wind and rain laying bricks for Ms. Rayner's, 1.5 million homes that she intends to build? So all these poor bricklayers and concreters and they'll all be dead. They'll never claim their pension. because they'll all be dead of hard work and graft. It's
Maybe that's the idea. Maybe we just
it's like
keep everybody working, so we just kill
killing
them off.
people off. We're like going back to Victorian time.
Oh, no.
We'll be sending kids up chimneys before long. No, we don't have chimneys
Net
anymore,
zero,
do
Mum.
we?
Net zero.
Net
No,
zero.
we've got net zero now. There'll be no child. No child will be going up a chimney.
The children are saved, then. The children are saved.
Yeah, they're only
God bless
saved.
their souls.
We just let all the little children in China make all the panels now. That's
it.
fine. They're not our children, so we don't care. Well, we do. We do care. That was was my hint of irony, attempt at irony.
Child labour.
So definitely not any child labour, no. So you mentioned Angela Rayner then. So obviously a hobby of a pensioner, the classic hobby would be to tend an allotment. And I know that you've got an allotment, but I actually haven't seen it yet. So I think you got this last year. So tell me about your allotment, because I believe that Angela Rayner has sanctioned off the selling of allotments in many,
she's not
many
having mine.
Well, I think she's sanctioned off the selling of many council allotments, but not in her constituency.
No.
So I don't think she's sanctioned them there. So what's your take on the big allotment sell-off then? You already mentioned that she's trying to make some space for 1.5 million homes, which, we do need housing. I mean, we've got a lot of extra people. We need houses to put people in. And I'm afraid it is the law of supply and demand. If you only have a small amount of something, if you've got scarcity, usually the price will be higher. So, yes, we understand we've got to build new homes. The whole thing about the allotment, I mean, it's an easy thing to catch onto and say, this is absolutely outrageous. But I mean, really, please, of all the land that we have got in our country, are you trying to tell me that the last chance saloon of places that we can build on are parish council allotments? This just seems completely and utterly ridiculous to me. When I walk down, I used to live in Derby, where you live now. I grew up there. I go back to South Wales, which is where I was born, which is where my father's side of the family is from. I've lived in Norfolk for nearly 20 years. I go into Norwich now, and I just see the way in the last 20 years the high street has completely and utterly transformed. So what we're seeing there is the city centres are changing, and there's big things, it's not just about the local department store is closing down. People are shopping more online. People are going to out of town shopping centres, all of that sort of thing. And it's really changing the way the city centres look. But the point I actually wanted to make to come back around to the housing question or the conversation is, I don't know what Derby's like. I've not been through Derby for a couple of years, but there's tons of places in Norwich in the city centre that could be repurposed to make housing in the city centre. So why would you not want to repurpose the old Debenhams that's a complete and utter tip and completely run down in Norwich? Why not repurpose that? Put flats above it or apartments above it and retain the ground floor as a commercial or retail space. Why on earth do they need some allotment out in the countryside in Norfolk? And I'm guessing it's the same in Derby. Is it the same situation there?
In the city centre, there was a huge parade of shops and a great big square that had a casino, a hotel, licensed premises. That's all been redeveloped now into apartments. But on the outskirts of the city, there's tons of empty office blocks. Why can't they change those and refurbish them into small apartments, small outlets for single people or one-parent families? They have done that in other places. Pubs are closing at the rate of 8 a week. Pubs are usually quite large premises. They could turn those into 2 separate houses or 3 little link houses with a bit of a garden at the front and back. There's loads of places. I mean, allotments to a lot of people are quite precious, and it's a community in itself. I mean, I've only had mine for a year. I do share it with a neighbour. We have quite a big plot. But there's 200 plots on our allotment space that are council owned.
And where is that allotment?
It's in Derby.
What's it called?
Little Chester Allotments.
Little Chester Allotments. So, okay. Hello to the 200 allotment holders at Little Chester Allotments.
So there some people have been there for 20 years or 30 years, and it would devastate them. We've got people there from age 20 up to 85 that are still coming to grow. Some people just grow flowers. Some people that haven't got very big gardens, they grow flowers. We have little patios. We've got sheds, and it's a community. There's a community room there. They have open days, fun days for families. And a lot of young people now with children are coming and they're renting the plots, and the children are there. My grandchildren, the two youngest ones, they love to go and they love to pick the tomatoes and plant things. And then they come and they're saying, oh, look, that's what you planted. And it's a sense of achievement. It's a sense of community. And there is also a lot of charity allotments on there as well for people with learning difficulties, people in wheelchairs. They have raised beds. So, because obviously people can't bend down and do things.
So it's not and it's not just about the individuals then. There's this whole sense of community, thriving community, it sounds
Yeah,
like. And, that just to me, just the fundamental concept that you would ever need to sell a space like that to put
no,
houses on is pretty obscene because I see so many places throughout the entire county of Norfolk that have been either for sale or to let or, just falling down. I mean, and I'm not saying for a moment that anybody's been forced to sell their allotment in Norfolk or, close to where I am. But it's just the concept in terms of the government and Angela Rayner, it just feels to me it's just completely tone deaf when we're talking about our communities, we're talking about cohesion in society, and we want people to be close. Yes, diversity is our strength. We have all these wonderful slogans and we have all these government departments and all these people in government that seem to be paid to pay lip service to all this stuff. But actually, when you really, when you've got real communities, that have established over a period of time and are thriving. And now those communities feel like they're about to get displaced,
yeah,
basically. And
yeah,
for what? Because developers are actually hanging on to land. So, there's also a lot of land banking by developers where they actually just buy up lots and lots of land and they don't do anything with it because they just hold it because, again, it creates scarcity and it increases the value of it. I don't know what your thoughts are on planning permissions for developments. My opinion on a way around some of this stagnation of development, particularly in city centres, is, and the Labour government, I'm sure, would be quite fond of this because they like being quite draconian. But I think we should have stricter rules in certain areas about how long you can have planning permission on property for before you actually have to develop out the property. So currently it's quite a substantial period of time. I believe people should be able to own their own land, spend their own money in whichever way they please. However, from a social point of view, from a societal point of view, we do need places for people to live. And we have established places and communities where we've got land there that isn't being developed, or we've got land that's got planning permission and the developers haven't done anything with it. And I actually think that's really wrong. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
yeah. I entirely agree with that. I think it is wrong.
I don't have a problem with people, they own land and they don't do anything with it. But I think there are some areas, particularly in city centres where we've got brownfield sites. We all go to cities and they're just a complete and utter tip, commercial buildings that are to rent or for let. Have they applied for a change of use? Could they get a change of use? Would the council be open to a change of use? Perhaps councils need to be more proactive in going out to the landowners, to property owners, and actually saying, we're going to encourage you to apply for a change of use for this because we'd like to see more residential accommodation. And I think, the mix of the types of different accommodation in any environment are very important. And planning that properly is important because it contributes to the community and to the space that people live in. So if you just put all residential property in the city centre. Well, if you haven't got any shops, if you haven't got any offices, if you haven't got any shops, people can't buy anything. So then they're all driving out of town. If you haven't got any offices or that sort of space, then there aren't places for people to work. People who go into towns and cities or go into little town centres or village centres, at the end of the day, they're bringing money because they're going out buying their sandwich or, going to the little gift shop or doing whatever they're doing. So that's all about making these mini thriving communities and commercially making these places stack up, making them vibrant and actually interesting and nice places to live. But yeah, I think maybe there's a change required and some more forethought. And the incentive would be surely to landowners, because we shouldn't need government incentives for this, but the market should provide the incentive, because profit should be enough of an incentive and the market will determine whether or not it's right to build or to change the use or not. But I think definitely councils should be encouraging changes of use and being open to that if they're not already. In a lot of cities and a lot of towns that I go to, and I just wonder why they are actually sat there. Is it because those properties can't get a change of use, or is it because those landowners are just happy to sit on that as an asset that's got capital gain, that's just
Yeah,
growing in value because of the nature of inflation, and property usually increases in value
exactly.
over time. Maybe that's it.
Well, just to go back to the allotment thing, a lot of the plot holders that have surplus produce, they donate it to a charity one on there called Plot to Plate.
Plot to plate. Okay.
Plate. And they donate it, they take it to food banks, care homes. It goes to the poorest of people in society. This harvest season up to now, we've donated 166 kilos of produce.
Wow.
All the allotment holders to Plot to Plate, and they distribute it as they see fit.
So many
And
marrows. How many marrows?
oh no, well, even off my plot, stepdad and I took 30 kilos of courgettes and marrows to the Sikh temple last
Wow.
week. And I've been all around the neighbourhood giving people courgettes and plums and blackberries and onions and everything. I'll never use it, but really, I don't think an allotment saves you money. It costs about £1.25 a week for the rent. We pay that annually. But the water is included in that as well. It doesn't save you any money, but the quality of the food you're eating is 200% better than anything you can buy in the shops.
Yes, and it's that whole community thing, and it's the mental
Exactly.
health thing. It's being out in an open space. There are maybe people who
Yeah,
don't
it's
have very
lovely.
big gardens, and I
Yeah.
think that's all really, 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 really important. So yeah, it sounds like I can't wait to come and see this allotment. I'm sorry I've not been able to get there yet and pick up my marrows. Absolutely can't wait for that.
You'll miss the whole, and I'll tell you what, I didn't know the amount of things you can do with marrows. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Marrow cake, marrow jam. Honestly, marrows, they're just amazing vegetables. And
Well,
courgettes.
there's definitely a quote for radio there, Mother. Definitely a quote for radio. Okay, on that happy note. So you were saying, at the start, and you said you're a pensioner, you're 73. So I guess the NHS is something that's quite important to you, and getting healthcare. I'm not aware that you've got any awful illnesses, and obviously I wouldn't expect you to talk about them on here anyway. This is not the moment to tell me you've got some shocking illness that I'm not aware of. So I think there's a big disparity of NHS treatment across the UK. Personally, where I live, I think we're very well served. Nothing is perfect. Even things that you pay for aren't perfect. And we do it. Ultimately, we pay for the NHS because we're taxpayers and we pay through taxation. But of course, it's free at the point of delivery. And I think where Where I live, we are very well served. So what is the healthcare provision like where you are? We've spoken about this before, particularly we spoke a lot during COVID and inaccessibility of GPs, etc. What's the situation like for you at the moment, and how does it feel being a pensioner trying to get treatment on the NHS? Is it difficult or any different to being young or old, or what's your
So I
experience?
think we call it the National Health No Service, not the National Health Service. Well, you won't remember the song. I think it was Peter, Paul and Mary that sang Where Have All the Flowers Gone? It's now Where Have All the Doctors Gone? Before COVID, doctors' surgeries were full. If you're lucky enough to be able to go, there's nobody in there anymore. They're empty. So where are all the GPs? We had, and the one thing that really annoys me, if you do phone up for an appointment, you've got a receptionist asking you, what is the nature of your problem? I don't want to tell a receptionist, but now they're called they're called navigators. And when you phone up, you get a 5-minute message about don't abuse the staff. You know, we don't tolerate that. Blah, de blah. All the appointments are full. That's at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, because there isn't any appointments. But our friendly receptionists, who are called care navigators and who have been trained to do so, will direct you to the right person. So there's a girl in there's about 20. She's hardly out in nappies. She's deciding who I'm going to see on that day. Do I get to see a GP? Do I get to see a trainee nurse? It's all wrong. And now we had this wonderful message from...
Sorry to interrupt you, but what would you prefer that to be? How would you like it to be? Tell me what's wrong with that approach.
Well, because they're saying now that not all conditions need to be seen by a GP. But whose right is it to decide that? Is it
Right.
me, or is it a young girl that answers the phone?
So you feel like actually, if you want to see a GP, you should make that decision. You should be able
Yes,
to say, I need to see a doctor or I want to see a doctor. And you're saying that should be your choice.
yes,
Okay.
I believe. I think I'm old enough to know that I don't go to the doctor with a runny nose.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got a really, really bad throat and I can't speak and I can't swallow, I want to see a GP. I don't want to see a pharmacist who can't really prescribe anything for me.
Well, the
So,
interesting thing is that one of our family members told me a couple of weeks ago that they had a complaint. One of their family members had a complaint, which was eczema. And the person that they were directed to at the GP surgery to see was a paramedic. And I actually thought it was a joke. And I know several GPs, and I spoke to my good GP friend, and she said, no, it's completely usual. You will find in doctors' surgeries now that they have paramedics. Now, it's not for me to do down the capabilities of a paramedic, but I would have thought a skin complaint and a chronic skin complaint, such as eczema, was probably quite outside the remit of the training of a paramedic.
paramedic.
And I do have to question at face value, it seems to me that how could that be the most suitable person to speak to this person
Exactly.
who had a very bad flare up of a chronic problem? And ultimately, doesn't that just actually waste more money? Because by the time my relative has gone through the care navigator, which I don't have a problem. I'm over it. I'll just tell the reception what is wrong. I'm very rarely ill. I tend to have lurgies, but nothing that seriously wrong with me. But I'll tell the receptionist what's wrong. And I'm more than happy to just tell them and for them to get me wherever that AI or whatever it is, that little flow chart that they're using, and to kind of go along with it. And I have to say, where I live, that system works very, very well. But hearing that somebody was sent to a paramedic because they have eczema, because of an eczema related problem, seems to me that that is very, very inefficient, because they've actually now had to go and see a GP, which is true. They did get escalated to a GP. And also, it's just ineffective for them because they've now had to wait longer to be seen by the person who can potentially provide them with a fix.
Yeah, well, this is what's happening. We had a message come through from the doctor's messaging service. It said, "Oh, good morning. We're so excited to announce our new system to avoid the 8 o'clock scramble for appointments." I thought, oh, yeah, this sounds interesting. Let's have a look. If you are able to, from the 8th of September, you can access a website to book an appointment
Oh, wow.
with a clinician.
Oh,
Now,
right. Amazing. That's very
what is,
advanced then. Very forward thinking.
yeah, but what is a clinician? Now, I looked up the definition of clinician, and it can be a doctor, a nurse, a therapist, a psychotherapist, or a healthcare assistant.
Wow. What a
A psych,
range. It's like a rainbow of
like a
of
rainbow.
of of, of
Don't go into
practitioners.
rainbows. So I wouldn't have thought psychotherapist would be much good if you had acne. But when you say clinician, you would think it would be a doctor, wouldn't you? A clinical person.
Yes.
But
I'm
no,
thinking
so
medical degree, clinician. I'm
yes,
thinking
clinician.
medical
Yes,
degree or maybe a
yes,
nurse practitioner, but
yes.
yeah,
So
somebody who would
this,
hold a clinic, but I'm guessing that's
yeah,
become quite wide ranging in terms of who
yes.
can hold a clinic.
So it went on to say you will be triaged by the clinician, and if they need to, then you'll be escalated to a GP. Surely this is costing more money. If you're not able to access the internet, if you're too old and feeble, then you have to phone the surgery.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the care navigator will guide you to the right person.
Well, I just had an appointment that was I had an appointment that was sent to me and I rang 3 times there was a link to view the appointment. So I got everything was all coming through on the text messages. Oh, this is all absolutely fabulous. And you keep getting the link reminding you of the appointment. And okay, a text message, they're 1 pence for 1,000 text messages, but they're not free to send. So I'm getting the text messages through, but then you click the link and it just takes me to a very pretty page that says, you have an appointment in this clinic, this time and date. We look forward to seeing you there. If you can't make this appointment or if you'd like to rearrange it, please call this number. So what is the point of sending me a link? Because I've already had a letter. So you click the link and literally it just seems completely and utterly, it just seems like a complete and utter waste of time.
Yeah,
They're hosting a website with my data on it. So I can see a web page with something on there I already know. And I actually tried to call 3 times to cancel that appointment and I couldn't get through. So every time I rang, it was either engaged or I think once it went, no, that's wrong actually. No, that's not true. Every time I rang, it was engaged and I actually couldn't get through and there wasn't a
yeah,
voicemail. So you couldn't leave a message. I couldn't leave a
yeah.
message. So how crazy is that? I mean, why not give people the appointment? Why not give me the opportunity? I'm going to go to a clinic for a particular thing. Why could they just not give me the opportunity to change the appointment? I mean, I can go and book at a restaurant. I can book a table at a restaurant. And if I want to change the booking, the restaurant is controlling when the bookings are available to be made. So surely it's no more complicated than just restaurant booking software.
No, no.
Literally, it's a
Well,
calendar with slots. The slots are
yeah,
available or they're
yeah,
not. What's so
yeah.
difficult about
Well,
it?
I had the same thing last time I went for breast screening. I got the letter. I looked at it and I thought, oh, that day's not very convenient. So you've got 2 numbers to phone. Phone the numbers. I was phoning the numbers for 2 days, each one. They weren't engaged. There was just nobody answering the numbers. So I mislaid the letter. I put the date in my phone, but forgot to put the time in. So I was driving near the breast screening clinic one day. So I thought, oh, I'll just pop in. So I popped into the clinic. I said, I'm really sorry. I said, I can't make my appointment. Could I please change it? Oh, no, we can't change appointments here. I thought, all right, well, this is the clinic. She said, you have to call. I said, I've been calling the numbers for 3 days. So she said, I'll give you another number. I said, oh, thank you very much. Very kind of you. She gave me another number. Oh, she said, they are very busy. I said, but it's not engaged. There's nobody answering. So I tried the other number for 2 days. I couldn't get in touch with
So
that.
how
So I
many
thought,
numbers did you try? And what happened in the
3.
end?
In the end, I thought, I can't miss this appointment, so I'll cancel what I've got. But I couldn't remember the time, but I thought it was around 1 o'clock. So on my way to the swimming pool, I popped into the hospital again and I said, I know I've got an appointment today. This was about 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, I think it's around 1 o'clock. Could you tell me the time? She said, it's 1:30. I said, oh, that's fabulous. I'll be back later. She said, oh, if you'd like us to do it now, she said, because there's about 20 women that haven't turned up. If they can't get through to if you're on holiday or you've booked a holiday or you've got an important meeting, how are you supposed to cancel your appointment if you
Well,
can't
that's the
get through on
problem.
the
So
numbers?
there's all these people missing appointments. There's all these missed appointments, but there's just some really, really quick fixes and easy things that the NHS could do to make it more efficient that actually wouldn't cost a lot of money. I mean,
I know.
businesses all up and down the country, organizations up and down the country are using integrated calendars with software to enable people to book things, to change their bookings, and to cancel their bookings. This is very,
Yeah,
very straightforward, easy stuff. And anybody who wants to try and say it isn't is just overcomplicating it, because if they overcomplicate it, it keeps them earning their six-figure salary, or it keeps them in their precious job with their special job title, in their little
exactly.
fiefdom, where they try and keep telling everybody that it's terribly expensive and terribly difficult to do all these things, when actually it isn't. It's a load of old rubbish. Just get a
Yeah,
calendar, integrate it, and let people self-service. And actually what you do is you probably have a better satisfaction as well. You know, I felt
yeah,
really bad that I'm constantly ringing up and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to miss this appointment. Somebody else could have the appointment. What a complete and utter
exactly,
waste of time.
exactly.
So, so you're thinking that the NHS could do with improvements in terms of the doctor's surgery then?
The doctor's surgery, and I just think there's so much money wasted. There's so much waste in the NHS. I know a lot of people that work within the NHS, and I know a couple of secretaries, 1 or 2 nurses, and they say the waste and the waste of time and the waste of money is abominable. Absolutely abominable. So I don't know what the answer is really. But I don't think there's any point in keep throwing millions and billions of pounds at something and then 12 months and 2 years down the line saying the NHS is on its knees, we need more money.
Well, and I think there's just, you know, that is the argument across the public sector now. It's the argument across our country, in that there's always been the issue of public sector waste, and the public sector, every single part of it is always going to have its critics, and people are going to always recognize ways that they could spend that money better, or, you know, have good ideas about how things could be better. But probably a lot of the times they're right. I mean, I was considering the Notting Hill Carnival. That's been in the news because that's coming up. And,
Yeah,
you know, when you think of the cost of policing that, for example, last year there were 8 stabbings at that carnival. 2 people died at the carnival. I mean, what is the cost of policing it? I've got it in my head. It's £8 million, but I could be wrong. I'm going to fact
probably.
check that while we're talking about it. But I know that at the carnival this year, they're deploying extra technologies, and they've actually arrested over 100 people already before the carnival who they're expecting to go there and commit offences.
Yeah,
Some of those people have already been returned to prison because they're on post-sentence supervision. There are people who've got specific bail conditions not to go near the carnival. But I do feel sorry for people who live in Notting Hill, because I imagine that that event has far outstripped its original brief and original, if you like,
yeah,
remit and intention. And I do feel like if it was I don't know, if it was a big cricket event and 8 people got stabbed, or a football event, you know, if there was a football match or a football derby, as it were, that happened every year, say, I don't know, who would it be? Arsenal and Liverpool, or Nottingham and
yeah,
Derby, you know? Um, If 8 people were stabbed, I mean, okay, there's over 1 million people go to the event, so you have to sort of put it all in a rational way. But ultimately, 2 people died at that event last year. There were 8 stabbings. I mean, I'm guessing for the 2 people who died, their families, it doesn't actually matter how many people went to the carnival. The fact is their family member is now dead.
Yeah. Well, one stabbing is too many. One stabbing is too many. 8 is horrendous. But they're putting facial recognition cameras out this year, and this is how they've arrested these. I think it was 110 people over the last week or whenever it was. So they've been interviewing people about the facial recognition. So you've got the usual loonies are saying, oh, well, people might get arrested and they haven't done anything just because they might look similar to somebody else. Well, if you haven't done anything, what's your problem? I don't get it. It's only the people who may commit crime or want to commit crime have a problem with facial recognition. If you go to Southeast Asia, I think you've been as well as I've been, you get to the airport, fingerprints, photographs, and there's facial recognition everywhere you go. If you don't want to do that, turn around, matey, get the next plane back to the UK.
Yeah, and I
So
think
I
I've discussed this with Gareth before. I think the fake facial recognition that they use is looking for people who are already, if you like,
on
on the
on the
system.
radar.
And I guess the issue from a civil liberties point of view is it right that you are pulled to one side, your day is interfered with, you're potentially maybe arrested in a case of mistaken identity because of a facial recognition camera that's been set wrong. So part of the issue, I believe, is that for people who are black-skinned people, they are more likely to be wrongly picked up or wrongly identified by facial recognition cameras. So there's an argument to say that using these cameras disproportionately represents members of that community or of that racial demographic, and therefore those people sort of feel like they're being harassed, they're being stopped. I'm black, I'm being
Victimised.
stopped because being victimized, which I totally get that argument. And I think there are actually settings that can be used on the facial recognition cameras that can help to prevent that from happening or can reduce the amount that happens. I think it's it's the old classic argument, isn't it? Do you want to live in a safe place or do you want to live in a place that's got fabulous civil liberties? I'm not really sure where that utopia lives, I'm not sure where that utopia is, because the super safe places, Singapore, very safe place to go to. Civil liberties, very low down on the scale. So, it's very much a surveillance state there, isn't it?
It's the same as the Emirates, though.
Do you want that? And I guess it's easy to say with respect, oh, well, if you haven't done anything wrong, it's not a problem then. But fundamentally, there are people who think it is a problem because they think the state, in the same way that I think the state shouldn't have much to do or much say in how I spend my money, or shouldn't be fleecing me left, right, and centre for tax, that same thought process and that fundamental, belief that people have that say, well, no, the state should not be interfering. The state should not be collecting my data. The state should not be interfering. But, I think we live in a world where I think that's got to be, is part and parcel of the world we live in. There's the whole thing of, is it proportionate and necessary would be, 2 tests that you would want to apply. But what's proportionate and necessary to one person is not necessarily proportionate and necessary to another.
But to a lesser degree, if you have a Morrison's More card, or if you have any supermarket loyalty cards, they are collecting data from those cards.
Yes.
That is why you get all the emails about offers, this, that, and then you start getting them from. So everybody is collecting data.
Yeah, but I think if you've got a Nectar card or a John Lewis reward card and all they've got is an email address, which you could give them an email address that's just a bogus email address that you just use for those sorts of purposes. What do they know about you? They don't need your address. You don't have to give them that information, but you can still get the offers, etc. that's quite different to having your photograph taken every time you walk down the street and that being put on a database and potentially your identity is mistaken and four coppers jump out of a doorway and think, you're the person who did the armed robbery and, strong arm you onto the floor and maybe
Yeah.
duff you up a bit accidentally, of course. I'm not suggesting they do it on purpose, but,
No.
maybe you do resist your arrest and you might get harmed in the process and you've actually done nothing wrong, but that could come out of, you know, misidentification of people. So I think there's definitely a balance to be struck there, but where the balance is struck, I think that's changing all the time, isn't it? According to
Mm.
what society is
Well,
happy to accept, that's changing. It's evolving constantly.
to me, is it something that we want or don't want, or is it something that we need? And I think in this day and age, it's more needed. I mean, when I went to Abu Dhabi a few years ago, we arrived there quite late at night. We were a bit stressed, a bit tired. Let's go for a walk in the fresh air. And he said to me, let's go on that underpass and see what's on the other side. I said, I am not going in an underpass at 11:30 at night. The next morning, it's full everywhere. It's full of cameras. And Abu Dhabi is the most safest place to live in the world. I know they probably haven't got very good human rights, but nobody misbehaves because they know what the punishment's going to be.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? It's like you live in these extreme places where punishments are extreme and, does that act as a deterrent or not? Or maybe it does, but it's the one person being on the wrong side of that then becomes the argument for not having that sort of draconian enforcement in our own
Mm,
country.
uh,
And I guess, that's where we have arguments around the death penalty, isn't it? Would you support bringing back the death penalty? Well, I don't know. I mean, that is a question for you to answer. My concern about the death penalty would be, well, in what circumstance? Is it only when the person admitted the offence? Is it, always, if somebody's been convicted, we could give them the death penalty for let's say it was murder, that would always be available? Would it only be available in certain circumstances? What about miscarriages of justice? Because there are miscarriages of justice. You can't get away from that. So, what do you think about the death penalty?
well, it's a very emotive subject, but I think these days evidence is probably more reliable than it was 50 years ago when poor old Timothy Evans was sent to the gallows. I don't know. I really don't know. It's like I say, it's a very emotive subject. But if they were to bring it back, I would say death penalty for murder, definitely.
Yeah, and I
Death
think
penalty.
it comes back to, the whole crime and punishment thing, which Gareth and I touch on quite a lot. And we've heard week about the Bell We've heard this week about the Bell Hotel in
So,
Epping, and people talk about migrants and crime of migrants. And I never want to go on that whole bandwagon of all migrants are criminals, all economic migrants are criminals, all illegal migrants are criminals, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they are criminal. Anybody who comes on a small boat or overstays a visa actually is committing a criminal offence. So they are
yes.
criminals in that sense of the world. But they're not all rapists and murderers.
No, of course not.
But again, it's that whole thing of there's a lot been happening in the news this week with regards to conversations around asylum seekers and migrant hotels specifically, given what's happened with the Bell Hotel and these other protests that are going on. And I think, we don't know who these people are. And I just think it's utterly bizarre how anybody would ever argue. People will say, well, look, these people, they're not all murderers and rapists. Well, number one, I should hope not. But number two, we've got enough murderers and rapists of our own, of the
Yeah.
homegrown variety.
Yes.
So why would you let one more rapist or murderer into your country or thief or vandal? Why would we ever? What is the argument for ever having any more criminals in our country? It just makes no sense whatsoever. I
Well,
cannot get my head round it when people make an argument that, well, they're not all murderers and rapists. Well,
No, of
no,
course
they're
not.
not, but some of them are, and we don't actually know who all of them are. We
Who
don't know
they
who
are.
most of them are. And even if we did, it wouldn't matter. Why are we importing people who are criminals into our country? We've got enough of our own. So there's a campaign at the moment called Raise the Colours. People, I believe it started in Birmingham, so they've been going around and they've been putting flags on lampposts, St George's, the Union flag, and then now
Painting mini roundabouts.
and then now painting potholes, because apparently the councils are coming out to fix the potholes to get rid of the St George's flags. I mean, I can't condone anybody committing any kind of criminal damage, but I understand why people are angry at certain things, and I think people feel like the world that they live in, the towns, the villages that they live in, are changing. And I think the raising of the colours campaign is really interesting. So you're married. My stepdad is from India. So you've been married to him.
First generation immigrant.
First generation, legal, not illegal, legal immigrant.
Legal immigrant.
I always say to people, if you cut them in half, there's a Union flag.
Yes.
So what's your take on why people feel that they've got to put this flag up? Because a lot of people are saying this is just people who are racist. These are far-right extremists. No. They are the useful idiots of the far right, and they are so insecure about their own country and their own culture that they've got to put flags up. So what's your take on that?
Well, for one thing, damn right, I feel very insecure about my culture. I think that our culture is slowly being eroded and eventually will be cancelled altogether. Thank God I won't be here to see that. I'll be, well, I don't know where I'll be, but I'm hoping it's somewhere nice. But no, I mean, there are some far-right hardliners. Yes, that's the truth. But I was having a conversation in the committee room at the allotment a couple of weeks ago, and somebody said, I don't like the George Cross. It's very divisive. So I said, why is that? She said, it's a football flag. I said, well, excuse me. I said, I think St. George was around way before football. St. George was. It is the flag of England. Is the Scottish flag being viewed in the same way, or the Welsh flag? It's just a patriotic flag. I am patriotic. Your stepfather is very patriotic. He can tell you all the birthdays. He loves the royal family. He knows all the birth dates. He's in love with Princess Anne.
You'd be gone in a minute, Mum. If she came along, and showed him her ankle, that'd be it. It'd be off.
Yeah, I'd be gone. He's always loved Princess Anne. Very hardworking woman. I've got nothing against her. But yeah, I do. I mean, even in schools now, I can remember your daughter, my granddaughter, coming home with a Diwali card when she was about 6. I mean, she's a lot older than that now. So I said, she said, look what I've made in school, Grandma. I said, oh, that's lovely. At Christmas time, I said, did you make a Christmas card this year, Jessica? No, we're not allowed to make Christmas cards. So, we used to have fantastic nativity plays. We don't have those anymore.
Well, they probably come with a... if you had a nativity play now, it would probably come with a trigger warning of some description.
Yes. Yeah.
Caution, could be a cross, could look like a flag, could look like St. George's flag, could be patriotic.
Well, they do. There's no kind of Mary and Joseph anymore. There's no traditional, there's no angels.
They're probably the wrong gender. It must be a gender thing. It's a gender thing.
That's for another day.
That's probably how it was an immaculate conception, because Mary's probably not really a woman or something, or she's another type of woman. I don't know. I've no idea. Who knows?
I'm just waiting for one day when we might see Mary with a rainbow headdress on.
Oh, I'm sure she's already been there. I think we've seen Mary's been an octopus, squids, or we've seen it all.
Everything.
We've seen it all. But a lot of young people are going back to church, actually. Christianity is really coming on the up.
On the move.
Yeah.
Move.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot more people, and ultimately that's people talk about this Judeo-Christian. People band that around. What does that really mean? I don't know if many people who say that actually know what it means. To me, I went to a Christian school. I went to church when I was younger. And, Christianity, I mean, okay, it's got its critics and it's got its fanatics as well. But if you actually consider the central points of it, I mean, it's a pretty cool religion. I mean, it's quite a loving, caring religion, actually. It
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 is.
doesn't incite you to go and harm anybody or kill anybody or end the world or anything like that. It's all
We
very
don't.
give love, love light.
Yeah, I mean, we're Anglicans. I don't call Catholics infidels.
No,
I don't call Methodists and Baptists infidels.
the Baptists, though. No, I'm
Or
kidding.
the Baptists, the Welsh Baptists,
Oh, my days.
hellfire and damnation. But yeah, I do feel that we are slowly being eroded, very quietly being eroded.
And how do you counter that then? What specifically is being eroded and how do you counter that?
I think just culture. We can't do anything for fear of offence. A couple of weeks ago I was in Birmingham and there was loads of marauding people all over the city centre with Palestine flags. If we walk out with the George Cross, take that down because you're being offensive. I'm not
Yes.
being offensive. It's my belief. British Empire and colonialism, that's all gone. It's in the past. Now, I don't think about that. In fact, sometimes I think that what we did to some of those countries was quite wrong, the way we used people in those days. But that's in the past. It's hundreds of years ago, just let it go. Let's all be what we want to be. But I think certainly when people come to this country, they need to integrate into society, which is not happening because personal experience. I was an ethnic minority in the family I married into. They don't want to integrate. They don't want to integrate. Nobody wants to integrate, but we're expected to accept everybody for what they are.
So when you say they don't want to integrate, what do you mean by that? Is that they just want to have their own community and kind of have that, but here in the UK or?
Yeah, that is what happens. They just want to have their own community. They don't really. I think with the children of, like you say, your stepdad's first generation, he's now in his late 60s. So the children of those people are integrating more. So it's getting less and less.
Right.
But there's still a lot of, I mean, we can go to places now and I'll walk into a room and people will just turn their back on me. They make judgments that aren't valid. Why can they judge me in a certain way? Because I'm an English woman that was married before. I've got no lesser morals than anybody else. I've got very good morals.
Is it because you're white and you're not Indian? Or is it because you're divorced? You had been married before?
Both.
Okay.
So, there's been a lot of 40 years ago, because we're coming up to 40 years now. 40 years ago, it was still really not the done thing. So to marry a wayward white woman.
Well, it wasn't a done thing to marry an Indian guy if you were white either, was it? 40 years ago,
well,
that was
not
still
really,
quite a big thing.
It was
a big
quite
thing.
A big thing.
That was not usual. Mixed race relationships were not usual.
No, and you can't say mixed race now. It's blended.
Blended.
You have a blended family.
Well, it was mixed race when I got married into a mixed race family, so I'm owning that because that's my truth. That's my truth. That's my story. It's my lived experience, and I'm having that, and that's that.
That's that. That's that next.
Yes, that's the JT word.
The JT word. Yeah. Great.
No, well, it's that is something we could talk we could talk a lot about, and I'm sure, yeah, we'll have to do this again. It would be great to,
We
if
will.
you would come back on when
Of
Gareth
course
is
I will.
back.
Yeah.
No doubt I'll have his swarthy suntan next time I see
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really, really great having you on the show. Thank you very
I've
much.
really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming. So, what I would just say to anybody who's listening is really, really hope you've enjoyed listening to this week's show. My co host, my brother Gareth Thomas, was not available as he swanned off on holiday. So, my mum and Gareth's mum stepped into the breach to come and join me and have a little chat about what's going on in the world. And it's been absolutely brilliant. So, if you've enjoyed the show, please do subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this. Leave us a comment. We'd love to get your feedback. And we look forward to seeing you next time on The T Word. I'm Justine Thomas. Thanks very much. Goodbye. If you enjoyed watching today's episode and want to see and hear more from us weekly, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also find us on all major social media platforms. My name's Justine. Goodbye. And thanks for watching The T Word.